In this video, traders, we're going to look at the question, do different sessions require different strategies from a kind of short-term day trading scalping perspective? Stay tuned. Hey guys, warm welcome to you. So a question from NSA Key, and appreciate your question. I know you're a regular at asking questions and do appreciate that. And I know there's a list of people out there, guys, who you do ask really good, thoughtful questions, and I do appreciate that. There's also a list of you out there who say some pretty horrible stuff as well, and I don't appreciate you, so don't bother commenting again. But majority of you guys, you know, you make great comments and you ask thoughtful questions, and it makes for good videos and makes me think about trading more it makes me think about my trading and how do I explain it a bit more, and then I learn some stuff from you and you guys learn from stuff from me, and everyone's a winner. That's what it's all about. All right, so NSA Key says, as a scalper, did you find that trading during sessions required adjustments to your strategy? Did you find that trading during different sessions required adjustments to your strategy? Seems like each session has its own personality sometimes with regard to how people trade. So how did you manage your trading around these changes, and did you stick to one particular session? Thanks. Yes, NSA Key, you're quite right. Scalping is really focused on trying to get in with the flow of the market, and you've nailed that there with that question, and that is exactly on the right path. Okay, the flow of the market is so crucial. Not getting all woo-woo about it, but if you're in tune with the market in a trading session, you're scalping because it's active or something's happening that's key, that's brought me into the market. Or years ago when I'd sit there day to day for every single kind of market, the conditions would change dramatically, and you would have days where you'd have very explosive days, and then you'd have to kind of stay into the chase mode. I have to chase because the market is, I can't use a mean reversion strategy. I have to be prepared to buy high because it's very explosive. We're in a chugging trend day. I have to be very disciplined not to chase now because we often pull back or sit there and stagnate. It's not suitable. Now we're in a range bound two-way market. That's great. That feels much better, much more comfortable, much more in tune with how I want to trade. So now I'm going to maximize that. I'm going to start to risk double, treble size on it because I'm prepared to, etc. So it's that fluidity and being able to kind of move with the tide and the ebb and flow that makes it a kind of a good endeavor or a less worthwhile one. So the question was, does it require different strategies? Now, if we look at a kind of normal day-to-day session, you would say, okay, well, I don't know what time zone you're in. NSA Key, maybe you're in the US. But let's assume that you're in Europe, and we'll make that assumption the US can come into that. So for one particular day, we'll look at two different day types in a second, but you might have different kind of moves. So you might have the opening drive here, so that's the open. You might have some sort of aggressive movement from the DAX open or the FTSE open. Then you might have a kind of a drifting session where it will drift on higher or drift lower or stagnate. And then you might have a choppy session here, and then you might have where the US starts to come on board, the US open, not US open, and then that can continue on, and then we might get the close here. Okay, so you might have those kind of four phases, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's a five phases, isn't it? You might have those 5 phases. But if you're trading, say, the US, you might have 4 phases because you haven't got this US open here. You've got the open, you've got the kind of lunchtime chop, maybe a little bit of consolidation, and the close. So it might even be 3 phases, and it kind of continues on like that. So there are distinct different phases that you've got to be aware of as a scalper, and really they are pretty much set in stone. Like, okay, at this time I'm going to stop trading, or I'm not going to start looking for momentum ignition type trades. I'm going to look for kind of fading type trades, or I'm not going to trade at all. But the question was, I've kind of digressed slightly here, but the question was, different sessions require different strategies. Yes, they do, because one day we might have an exploration into a fresh high, the next day might be a kind of inside day. And there's lots of studies out there by kind of price action guys, tape reading guys from many years ago. And Linda Bradford-Rashke is more of a modern one who's done a lot of studies on the old guys and talked about positioning yourself and knowing what to expect in the day. So, okay, yesterday was a big trend day, and this is something I do quite a lot. It's okay, yesterday's a big trend day, and if I want to get involved in this market, yesterday's a big trend day. Today, I know the probability of us testing that prior high is relatively high, right? So I can now look for a thesis around that and say, okay, well, I don't expect us particularly to have a really aggressive day because we had quite a big trend day yesterday. However, if we kind of put in a double bottom and we start to kind of push to lows, and I need to draw a double bottom, we all know what double bottom is, and we kind of push to lows and we start to find some support, I might buy that looking for a push to highs, because if we haven't already tagged the prior day's high, I know that's super likely based on how price action drifts back and forth. And yeah, occasionally it might stop you out and it might just drift lower because it was just a kind of V-shaped reversal. But having that idea in your mind, know that, okay, if we start the day in a negative note, let's not get too carried away on the short side, because the prior day has given us a clue that this potentially could hold and then retest that prior day's trend day, because we think that the buying is still not completed. So yes, the session would be different. The prior session, you'd be buying your pullbacks, looking for those moves up to highs, or if it's a grinding trend day, which are one of the ones I hate, by the way, guys, the grinding trend days, I just walk away from them, because you kind of got your bid below, it never gets filled, it constantly grinding up, I can't feel like chasing it, it's not volatile enough to chase. It's one of those, maybe it's my nemesis, but hey, it is what it is. So you get those grinding trend days, then the next day, or a powerful trend day, the next day you're positioning differently, you're positioning mean reversion but with a long bias. And the day after that you might say, okay, well now we've kind of done some work, now we're looking like a bit of a more of a bull flag on a daily, now we've had kind of 4 days of congestion, we're coming up to a Friday, maybe now I'm going to start to look for range expansion. So you would use a different strategy. You'd say, okay, well I'm not going to start fading moves anymore, I'm going to start looking for pullbacks when we push to highs. I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive with my buys. I'm going to look for them to come in and do some work at lows like a double bottom. I'm going to look for little mini bull flags in the range and hold it for an explosion up. So it's kind of structuring your day and your strategy around your broader thesis in the week. I mean, I tend to personally not look like massively, especially if I'm day trading perspective, not go too far out, but just say, well, what do I expect the week, how do I expect the week to pan out based on what I've seen? And then when it starts to pan out, how is it fitted in with my plan? What can I expect the next day? If we've had a narrow range day, do I expect a kind of outside day? Have we got a gap coming up? How will I expect to grow with a gap? And then try and adjust and play with try a different type of strategy related to the different sessions. So I hope that's answered the question. I think I've interpreted that question correctly, as in different sessions, as in going from Monday to Tuesday, or different sessions with splitting up the day, or maybe you're talking about the over hour sessions, the regular trading hour session, same kind of thing. Regardless of that, yes, we want to use different strategies for different sessions potentially. Now, one last thing before we end the video, there may be a theme that runs through the whole week or the whole sessions that we can use, i.e. we know that the average kind of move before a pullback is X number of ticks. We know that we get this kind of ATR in the day. There's some commonality there, but it might change in terms of what sort of strategies we want to use day to day, but with that broad theme that goes on throughout the whole week or perhaps the whole month. Anyway, hope that's helped. Appreciate the question. Take care. Bye-bye.